my name is Julieta, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and an ASEX certified sex therapist. And I am going to talk about the archetype of Circe. So, Circe was a sorceress. Basically, she was a witch, and she was featured in the Odyssey. Circe was banished to an island. There's a lot of different accounts of why she was banished. She had magical powers and really was known to transform people. So there's a lot of reasons why she was banished, but she was exiled into this island. And on this island, she really delved deeper into her experience of being a witch. And she was able to use plants to make potions. She specialized in transformation and transforming people into animals. She really was unique in that she was also very sexually empowered. She had love affairs, she had sex because she liked to have sex. She chose who she wanted to have sex with. And this was different than a lot of these myths at that time in ancient Greek mythology, where a lot of these, even the goddesses, were forced into marriages or forced into sexual experiences that were not consensual. So Circe is featured heavily in the Odyssey with the Odysseus myth. So him and his men were shipwrecked. He represents the hero in the hero's journey. They ended up getting shipwrecked and they land on her island, and she turns all of his men into pigs. And Odysseus had actually been warned about Circe before they went to her and had been given a potion that would help block her magic. So he's the only one that is not transformed into a pig, but she transforms all of his men into pigs. Eventually, they become lovers, and he convinces her to transform his men back into humans. And he actually lives with Circe for a whole year. He's happy, he's content on her island. They're having sex, they're companions, all is good. And his men eventually say to him, hey, we have a journey that we need to do. We need to get back to your kingdom. We need to get back to home. And so he ends up leaving and going and continuing his journey back home. But she was really viewed as a hindrance in the Odysseus myth. She was viewed as somebody that would block their journey home, block the hero's journey. So a lot of that myth was about how she was a hindrance, how she was pushing Odysseus into complacency, into just having fun and not continuing his hero's journey. But when we take a step back and we look at Circe as an archetype, there's actually so much complexity here. So Circe, one, was very empowered sexually. She had sex with who she wanted to. She was powerful, and I think that can be very scary, especially during those times of Greek mythology. To have a sexually empowered woman was scary. And what we know about the witch archetype is sexual empowerment is a big aspect of the witch archetype and has been actually part of that pathologizing of the witch. So she loved to have sex. She liked to choose who her lovers were. Sex is on her own terms. So if you take a minute and you think about your sexuality, if sex has felt empowered to you, or do you feel like sex has been more about what is expected, right? Like, do you have sex with somebody because that's expected of you? Do you have sex with somebody because you want them to stay? You want them to like you? Do you push down your raw, wild sexuality because you feel like that's too scary or too much for somebody, or you're afraid of feeling really vulnerable and what are people going to say? Is my partner going to judge me? Do you have sex because it feels awkward to say, hey, I don't feel like it right now, I don't want to? Is there a judgment if you don't feel sexual? judgment if maybe your desire is more responsive, you don't feel as much desire. So Circe can really help us to look at what sexual empowerment looks like for us. What does sexual authenticity look like for us? And that is different for everybody. And that is the beauty of this archetypal work, is we get to really connect with ourselves authentically. We get to know ourselves and start to step into that and start to feel compassion and really embrace what that looks like for us, knowing that there are so many forms of beautiful, healthy sexuality, and being able to know what that is for ourselves helps us to have much more joyful, much more vulnerable, much more connected sexuality. So that is one aspect of the Circe archetype that I think is really helpful to explore. Another aspect is transformation. She transforms so many people into pigs, into wolves, into lions. Like, she is the transformer. And thinking about how you feel about transformation, how you feel about change, I think Circe was really feared because we are afraid of change. We're afraid of transformation. It feels safer to keep things the status quo. And that can also lead us to feeling stagnant. That can lead us to feeling like we are dimming our vitality, our life force energy. We can end up feeling just really stuck when we don't change, when we don't transform. Circe shows us that, yes, it's so human to be afraid of change. I totally get that. I still, even with all of this archetypal work, I'm like, oh, change is scary. Change is overwhelming. Transforming is scary. It's the shedding of these old layers and just stepping into something new. It's trusting that we can get through painful experiences. It's trusting that through change, through transformation, we're going to grow. Even if it's painful, trusting that we can take this moment and we can go into this. And knowing that life is always about transformation. Things always will change. We are going to age. We are going to go through changes in our life phases, whether that's new jobs, having children, not having children, breakups, new relationships, deepening our relationships with somebody, work, career, transformations, cycles. We're always having transformation with the seasons, with the moon, with the earth. Things always are going to change. And I think as human beings, that is really terrifying and really scary because it makes us think about our own mortality. It makes us think about just all of these existential questions, all of these things that are not in our control, all these things that are changing that we don't have control over. So take a minute and really think, how do you feel about transformation? How do you feel about change? And what would feel actually empowering around that, of accepting that we inevitably are going to change, that change is always going to be happening around us. But how do we step into that and start to embrace that? Okay, I'm aging. How do I own these new parts of myself as I age? My relationship is shifting. How do I start to explore that and find new layers in this changing relationship? Or, my identity is starting to change. My identity now that maybe I've had a child or that I've changed careers. Really looking at that, honoring if there's any grief around that, any hopes around that, any fears around that, and starting to have that internal dialogue and that internal experience. And another aspect of Circe that I think can be really important, really healing for us on an archetypal level, is this connection with nature. We find this with a lot of these more dark goddess archetypes, underworld archetypes, witch archetypes, is this theme of the seasons, this themes of nature, this themes of actually living in alignment with the earth and recognizing that there's a lot of ways in which we don't as human beings. There's a lot of ways in which we disconnect from the changes that are happening with the seasons, with the cycles, with our own body cycles. And Circe shows us that through deepening our relationship with nature, with the earth, with our own internal rhythms, with our own internal cycles, we can transform. There's magic there, there's healing there. And so thinking on a day-to-day basis, how do we live in alignment with our own rhythms? Do we push ourselves to stay up really late? Are we overworking? Are we not eating when we're hungry, not drinking water when we're thirsty, not resting when we need to, not moving our bodies when our bodies are just craving movement? So starting to have that awareness of how maybe we're not living in alignment with our own rhythms, our own needs. So that is Circe as an empowered archetype. She helps us to live in alignment with our body's needs, to embrace transformation and change, which is inevitable. Instead of kicking and screaming and saying, I don't want to go there, she helps us honor the fears, honor the grief that comes with that, and also step into it and try to learn and grow from it. And she helps us look at sexuality in a new way. What does sexual empowerment mean for you specifically? That's so different for all of us. What does embracing our true authentic needs, our true authentic nature, our true authentic selves look like? And that is such a big part of this witch archetype in general, is authenticity, stepping into that, going our own path, even if that means that we're not going to conform necessarily to other people's idea of what it means to be successful or good or whatever that is. And finding how we do that safely, how we do that in a way that honors our authenticity and also recognizes that, yeah, there are different aspects of this world where we do need to feel safe. And if you are wanting more information on that authentic journey of the witch archetype, you can check out my witch archetype YouTube video where we go deeper into some strategies that you can use to step into authenticity in a way that feels honoring and feels safe for you. So Circe's, there's so much complexity, so many layers. I've actually have a whole Circe series of blog posts, which also has a number of reflection questions, of practices that you can use to deepen your connection with Circe and really delve deeper into sexuality through the Circe archetype, through connection with nature, with the earth, as well as transformation and change. And also goes deeper into her myth and her backstory. So I will have some links to that in this YouTube video if this resonates with you, if you want to check it out, if you want to connect more with the Circe archetype. And I just really appreciate your presence with me as we delve into Circe, into the witch archetype, and really, hope that you can honor whatever awakens for you as you explore Circe, as you explore your inner witch, and find ways to honor whatever shows up for you. That is a huge part of this path, is just looking at ourselves, getting to know ourselves more, and really starting to feel empowered on what changes we want or don't want to make in life. Thank you so much.